Well, it's time for another Hot Air Sports podcast with me, Ian McDonald, otherwise known as Macca, and my good mate Mahona. I'm struggling to see you there through all the sponsors' product, mate.
What is going on there, Macca? We're sponsored by Coke and Heineken. What's going on?
Well, I'm just trying to keep up with all the other press conferences around the world.
Oh, yeah, get rid of it. It's disgusting. It's dirty.
Yeah. I'll get rid of it, eh?
Billions of dollars. That's disgusting. That's better. That's better.
I'll just keep that one, eh?
Yeah, that's the way, mate. Yes, of course, we're referring to Ronaldo in his press conference the other day when he basically got rid of it and said, just drink water. Didn't he, Macca?
Quite right.
What a great role model for the kids he is, eh?
Don't do drugs, kids.
Don't drink drugs. I mean, drink, yeah. Don't do that. Yeah, because Ronaldo wouldn't do it unless he was paid a hell of a lot of money to do it.
Quite right.
How you been?
Yeah, good. We've it's been a couple of weeks since we last got together and had a bit of a chat about sport, and of course we had Guy Havelt on 2 weeks ago, who was a magnificent guest, and he's been busy since then covering all these different sporting events. So he is heading off to the Olympics soon, so we'll catch up with him again at that stage. But a lot's happened in the last couple of weeks, mate. We've thrashed the Poms in cricket.
Yeah.
Which was good, and there's been all sorts going on. We've got a couple of finalists for the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman competition, or should we now rename it the Trans-Cook Strait tournament?
I reckon just take the trans out of it altogether. I mean, I know we're trying to be inclusive and everything, but yeah, just take the trans out of it. I don't really like that. I mean, and look, this will probably come back to bite me saying that now. And in 5 or 10 years, I'll be going for some job, and they'll bring this back on me and say, "Oh, look, he's anti-trans people."
Yes.
Something like that. So, of course, referring to the Ollie, our favourite cricketer in the UK, who tweeted up a storm 10 years ago about what he didn't like, and then he loses his job as well. So there's all that going on. And, of course, there's the Euro Championships in the football as well. So much sport. And, of course, the Warriors as well. We're going to cover it all off. Where are we going to start?
Let's go back to what you alluded to there with Ollie Robinson banned from playing Test cricket for England due to social media indiscretions 9 years ago. And we've seen others who have suffered the same fate, other sports people who have been, castigated for social media faux pas, and baseballers who took steroids who were punished years after, even though it was legal when they took them. What's your opinion on this retroactive suspensions?
It's harsh, eh? It's look. I mean, even people like, even the talk show hosts in the States, 10 or 15 years on after they did blackface and stuff like that. I think Jimmy Kimmel and a couple of those guys, they got done for that. Look, it's difficult, isn't it, to take a snapshot of something from a few years ago and then put it into a context, in a 2021 context, when we're obviously going through at the moment. It's very difficult. What you're allowed to say and all that sort of thing. So I think we have to look at it in the context, first of all, of when it was said, who was saying it, and how old were they, and then sort of trying to judge it. I mean, it's so hard. You can't really judge it in 2021. So yeah, you just have to take each one individually. But the thing is, when I heard this Ollie Robinson thing, the first thing I did was go online and find out what he actually said, because I thought, well, it must have been terrible. And really, he didn't say a lot other than girls like sex, and it was pretty immature sort of stuff. It wasn't really hurtful to anyone. And I think you sort of have to take that into context as well. So long as it's not hurtful and hateful and around that sort of thing. If it was meant in good humor and it was perhaps misjudged, then apologize and move on. I don't think we need to really punish so much, do we?
So basically, it's not written by Israel Folau, effectively.
Exactly.
I'm not a fan of retroactive action in something like this that happened 9 years ago. I mean, we've even seen it now with people trying to erase history, getting rid of statues and street names and all that sort of thing. I mean, there's pros, but there's also big cons about, I mean, it still happened. Are we just going to tell kids going forward, no, this never happened. That never happened. No. No.
Yeah, well, that's sort of American history is, pervaded by that sort of thing. They suffered so many massacres. Not even 100 years ago, lynchings were going on in the United States, and they've just sort of wiped that. They wiped that from their history, and only now are we're learning a lot of the stories about these things that were basically not allowed to even be written in school books, or no one's allowed to. So I don't think hiding it is the way to go. I think you just need just use it as a case. Use it as a way to educate. I mean, we can say, look, this shouldn't be here, but this is the reason it is, and educate people around those things rather than just saying that's terrible. Rip it down. I mean, let's just try and.
Yeah. And I mean, as a baseball fan, seeing people that took steroids back in the 80s and 90s when it was legal, and they're never going to go to the Hall of Fame. I mean, you got the likes of Roger Clemens, Mark McGwire, Rafael Palmeiro, Sammy Sosa, Jose Canseco, Barry Bonds, Alex Rodriguez. None of those players are ever going to go into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's like baseball never happened in the 80s and 90s. It just never happened.
It's like, it's like saying when the speed limit in New Zealand used to be 80 kilometers an hour, we're now going to punish people who previously, when it was 100 kilometers an hour, that traveled at 100 kilometers an hour along that piece of road, because the speed limit's 80 now.
Yeah, I think the main thing is acknowledge it. If there needs to be an apology, apologize, and then learn from it. That's the key thing. But the punishment of it, I think, is perhaps going a little bit too far. But I think this is once again the British, the BCCI. I mean, they are just so weird with the way that they are so officious. You can play this, you must do this. And even it sounded like the commentators during the second test there, they were getting a little bit frustrated. Why can this guy not play? Why is he having to do this? Well, they're being told what to do all the time. And it seems like I
think what made it worse was the England team lining up before that first test.
That's right.
At Lord's,
taking a knee almost.
In the T-shirts with, there's no place in cricket for homophobia, no place in cricket for racism, that sort of thing. And it was.
But you would have thought that they would have, if that was their plan, that maybe with the amount of money that these guys get paid and the huge organisation that the BCCI is, that they would have maybe done some investigation on the 11 guys that were standing there on their social media presence and just sort of check that out for themselves rather than relying on a member of the public to go back. I mean, I know.
The other thing is, do you reckon before it actually came out, Ollie Robinson actually remembers making those tweets?
He probably does. But I don't look. I look. You can't say he's the same person. No. I mean, he did them when he was a teenager. Yeah. He's now a man. Playing. I mean, Christ. Thank God you can't go back and check what I said as a teenager. Thank God we're too old for that sort of thing, Macca. Because if there was retrospective punishment, I could be in jail. I don't know.
I think we'd be cellmates.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, mate, I don't know. I just think you got to take it in perspective. He was a kid. Move on. Move on.
Far too sensible.
Absolutely.
Now we've got the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman competition coming to a conclusion this weekend, and we'll talk a bit more about the final a little later. But in the 5 weeks of round robin, do you think we've seen enough from the Australian teams to say a full comp next year and going forward will work with the addition of the 2 Pacific teams?
That's a difficult one. I mean, obviously, initially they really struggled, didn't they? I mean, it could have been because they'd been playing each other for a while and they weren't used to that step up. International rugby's been on hiatus for 12 months, really. That's a really good question, but it's kind of difficult to answer. I think that Australian rugby is taking strides. I think if they were going to, I think what they probably need to do is maybe lessen the amount of Australian teams. So we've talked about this before. I don't know whether they can have 5 teams and have all that talent. Maybe 3 teams, If they had 3 teams, I think that their talent would be fine. But stretching it out to 5 teams is a bit much. Maybe 4 teams even. Yeah, but I think that a lot of the results initially, especially, were due to the fact that they'd been sort of, just playing each other for a while, and they needed to adapt to the New Zealand style and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, when you look at it, I mean, of the 25 games, it was 23-2 to the New Zealand teams, with only the Reds and the Brumbies winning a game. I couldn't agree more. I think 4, even 3 teams are going to make them a lot more competitive, but politically they're going to want to hold.
I know, but that's wrong. I mean, okay, look, so if we got the 2 island teams, we got 3 Australian teams, we had our 5 teams, 10 teams. That's almost the perfect number for me.
Yeah.
You could
10 or 12, I think, is the perfect number.
Absolutely.
I mean, maybe even 4 Australian teams, the 2 Pacific teams, and a Japanese team.
Maybe. Yeah, even that, or an Argentinian team. I don't know. Argentina's probably a bit far away. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, 10, 12 teams. You don't want any more than that. And I think really the but then again, also we could talk about maybe Australian rugby could become a little bit. I mean, their franchises could become a little bit stronger if we enabled a better draft system as well within the Super Rugby, and enabled maybe them to get a couple of our import, 2 or 3, or maybe New Zealand guys into each team. Maybe, guys that couldn't quite make our Super Rugby teams, or maybe even better players than that. Maybe even the odd All Black going and playing for one of the Australian teams. That would not be bad for the New Zealand players, and it wouldn't be bad for the Australian team, and it would be great for the whole comp. So,
I think maybe time New Zealand Rugby relaxed those rules.
I agree.
Around players playing overseas, basically to the level that if you're playing Super Rugby, you're eligible.
Absolutely.
So you can't go off and play for Harlequins or Exeter or anything like that.
Or France, or
whatever. But if you're playing within the Super Rugby competition, and I think Australia should do the same as well.
I agree.
I mean, obviously it already works for Pacific players who are playing in Super Rugby and still playing for their Pacific nations. There's plenty of those going around. So
it'd be quite good too, don't you reckon? If, say, Geordie Barrett was playing for the Waratahs, I just think, first of all, that would get bums on seats in Australia.
Yep.
It would get more interest from New Zealanders when Australian teams are playing the New Zealand teams, and it would be better for the competition all around. So I think, by all means, if we're going to do that, you have to think outside the square. How can we make those Australian teams a little bit stronger? And we don't need to be too tribal about it and say, oh no, we're strengthening the Australian teams. We need to do it for the good of the competition.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we've had some interesting news this week out of Freeman's Bay, haven't we?
Yeah, mate. Team New Zealand. Is it a New Zealand team anymore? I noticed you've written here, I would say anymore. I think it stopped being a New Zealand team a little while ago, but now the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron has said that it's going to hold the next defence offshore. Grant Dalton and the crew holding the country and Auckland to ransom over the lack of funds that the government and the Auckland City Council are prepared to give them. Do you think the Kiwis have really bought into this whole concept of the national team? I think we do when the races are on. But in between the event, I just don't think anyone blinds themselves. It's too foolish to think that this is really a national team of ours, surely.
I've written a bit of a rant.
Okay, go. Rant away.
I think Kiwis are finally seeing through the facade of crap being put forward by Grant Dalton, although Duncan Johnson's recent article in Stuff heaping praise on Dalton for keeping the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron up to date on negotiations screams of cheerleading, and I wonder if Johnson is actually on Dalton's payroll. Comments like the decision by Dalton and his syndicate to bring the members, I'm talking about the members of the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron, up to date of any general media announcements was a reflection of the respect they have for the club. And another comment, the government has been equally understanding of the champion yachting syndicate's need to look for greener economic pastures to try to fund the resources required for an unprecedented hat-trick of cup wins. There is no blood on the floor for the time being, just a quiet frustration that little old New Zealand could not make this happen right now. What a load of absolute tosh.
Dude.
Dalton and his cronies have become very, very, very rich people from the American Cup, and it's time the public understood how greedy these people are. Good riddance to the America's Cup. Hopefully America can win it back and keep it for another 126 years. And New Zealand needs to find another name because they're not New Zealand's team anymore.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, well done, mate. How much money has, they've become rich, and they've become rich on the New Zealand taxpayer.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I mean, how long can this continue? I mean, how long are we going to continue to fund this and just sort of lap it up? Okay. I've been watching on the news recently, Mike King returning his New Zealand Service Medal or New Zealander of the Year medal because he can't get enough funding for mental health because it's still, and we all know this is an epidemic in New Zealand at the moment. We all know people that have killed themselves or friends of people, and it's just like this untalked about thing. And Mike King's doing great work, but he can't get a few $million for funding, and yet every bloody time the America's Cup is, they come cap in hand and say, this is going to be great for the country. It's going to be great. This is great. You have to do it because this is just going to be so great for us. And we're going to get heaps of money in via all these people coming and it's going to be great. And everyone's just like, and we end up giving them the money. Everyone gets behind them and goes, waves their flags for about a month or two. And then it's done. And it's ridiculous, the amount of money. We don't have to pay these guys. It's ridiculous we are. The government is there for other reasons, not for this sort of thing. And they want to go and race in Saint-Tropez or wherever they're going to race, then fine. But calling yourself Team New Zealand has been you're drawing a bloody long bow for a long, long time, mate. It has not been Team New Zealand since since Michael Fay. Yeah, exactly. It's never been Team New Zealand. It's the international yachting syndicate of New Zealand based here.
I don't usually agree with a lot of what Duncan Garner says, but he said very well yesterday or the day before that the America's Cup basically is now Formula One. Of yachting.
Yes,
I mean,
that's what it is.
Do we care that Williams are based in England, or do the Italians care that Ferrari's based in Italy?
Where's McLaren? That's got a New Zealander's name. Why don't we call ourselves Team Dalton? The reason we don't call ourselves Team Dalton is because we wouldn't give them money if we called themselves Team Dalton. We only give it to it because it says New Zealand on it,
Quite right.
Yeah, anyway,
they can all piss off.
They can sail away.
Sailing
away. We'll see you later.
Quite right. We've got the World Test Cricket Championship final coming up this weekend.
It's tonight, isn't it? Start?
It is, yes. We'll get on to that a bit more in depth later.
Yeah.
But the Indian coach Ravi Shastri believes the competition should be decided over 3 tests rather than the current one-off. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I quite like it. I mean, 1 test isn't really enough, and we've all seen test series where the first test is drawn, and then and that's the other thing. What are we going to do if the test is drawn? Well, who wins? Do they win? Because
there is a reserve day, so there's
but have you seen the forecast? It's supposed to be raining for the next 6 or 7 days.
Yeah.
So what if it's drawn? What happens then? We share it, do we? Or do we do a boundary count back?
Who was the top qualifier?
I think we are. Well, we're ranked number 1. So
I guess we win it then.
Who knows? There's probably a count back on boundaries that you've hit in the last year, and we would have hit 2 less or something.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be over a series rather than
absolutely
a one-off. I mean, there are still a few sports around that have a one-off final, which it's great for the fans, it's a one-off thing. But for something like, you look at all the American sports, they're all best of 7 or best of 5 series, and
except for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Which is a wee bit different. But for something like cricket, I think, in a test match, you only need to have 1 bad day.
That's right.
And the game's over.
Yeah. And also it takes into consideration the conditions. If one team has like a great set of fast bowlers and the first and the pitch is on a green top, then they're going to win. Whereas if you have a 3-test series and you have, 3 different pitches and they provide, for different response for all different types of bowlers and batsmen, then everyone gets a chance. It's a fairer test. I think though they are just starting to come to terms with how they're going to run this World Test.
Yeah.
I think this is just the first one. I think hopefully it gets a bit better, and of course it isn't disrupted so much by COVID next time. So hopefully they can. But it should be a series. And why are we playing in England? That's another thing. I mean, okay, they're the home of cricket.
Cricket, dear boy, the home of cricket.
Yeah, but that was the argument for it to be at Lords, and they're not even playing at Lords. So. No, look.
This is something that puzzled me. They took it away from Lords because of COVID.
Yeah.
But England just played New Zealand there 3 weeks ago.
I think they took it away from Lords because it didn't suit the Indian bowlers, to be fair. Probably. I think the Indian Cricket Board has probably flexed a little bit of muscle and got that thing moved because they know that it spins a little bit down in Southampton. So, yeah, well, we'll see, mate. We'll see. I mean, it promises to be a bloody good few days. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Hopefully we do get a result, and hopefully it's fair for both teams. I just want to see some good cricket and us win some silverware finally. It's just been too long.
Well, it hasn't happened since 2000 or 2001 when we won that one-day tournament.
That's right. Chris Cairns hitting the winning runs.
Yeah. Now, before we get on to the European Championships, obviously it was horrible sight during the Denmark and Finland game with Christian Eriksen suffering a heart attack. Do you think the teams should have been forced to continue the game?
Well, this is a weird one because I've heard different takes on this, different stories. I mean, basically what's happened is that they've been asked by UEFA, do they want to? And they've said, well, what are our options? Oh, well, you can come back tomorrow or you do it tonight, so it's sort of like...
Or you lose 3-0.
Yeah. But did that really happen? Because their coach, the Danish coach, has come out and said that didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
Whereas, the goalie has said that it did. So I don't know. Either way, it was ridiculous that they had to play. I mean, just crazy. They came out, some of them looked like death themselves. They were in shock, They thought they'd seen their teammate die, even though they hadn't. I mean, it's still just the shock of that sort of event. And it sounded like from the broadcasters that a number of them were deeply affected too. I've heard so many people that are almost in tears. So I can't see how they were in any right state to play football. And putting it, and it is kind of typical of UEFA or any football organization just to sort of say, take it out of, look, nothing we can, we'll put it back into someone else's hands. And if they make the wrong decision, then it's on them. They should have just made a decision and said, okay, why don't we just say you both get a point and move on? I don't think either team would have cared, but
no.
Yeah, awful though, wasn't it? Awful.
Oh, it's just horrible. Absolutely horrible.
And the way that it was almost like voyeuristic camera work too, wasn't it? The way that they were trying to get in there, and then in the end, the way that the Danish players had to form that circle around them so they couldn't see. I mean, why were we seeing it? They take the camera away when there's a streaker on the field, but they don't mind us seeing someone choking on his own tongue. It's ridiculous.
I noticed at the time, Ian Wright, the former Arsenal striker, tweeted out, FFS, cut to the studio.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was crazy. Anyway,
so they were our 5 big issues for this week. So hopefully we'll have enough plenty of issues going forward to start off the podcast with
always big issues.
Yep. And now we'll get on to more mundane things like the Euro Championship.
Oh, hardly mundane.
About it. What are your impressions so far, and who's your favourites?
Okay, well, I've loved it. I've loved it so far. I love getting up in the morning and watching a bit of football, mate. I love football. So, I've absolutely loved it. There's been some. The games have actually been a lot more entertaining than the last couple of tournaments. I think there's been more goals. Teams are more willing to attack, and no team showing that more than Italy. I mean, the team that used to be the score a goal, sit back and play defensive. They just score a goal. They want to score another one. They want to score another one. I love the style they're playing. I've got $50 on them at the TAB, and I'm very happy that I put that money on them before they played their first game. They hadn't lost in 24, 25 matches, and they look like they've got the goods. I think they've got talent all over the field. I love this guy, Chiesa. He hasn't even played really yet. Plays for Juve, wide left. Berardi's been playing instead of him. I reckon he could make a huge difference later on in the tournament. And I just love the football they're playing. Them, obviously, the Frogs, the French are looking flash. England, they win 1-0 against a really dour, lackluster, old, aging Croatian side, and it's coming home. I just love the way that they start deluding themselves. I think France have to be the favourites, but Italy are my pick for the tournament. What about you, mate? What are your impressions so
an interesting stat that came out during that first game. I hadn't heard it ever before.
Go on.
In the history of the European Championship finals, Italy, who have been in every tournament, had never won a game by more than one goal.
No, they'd never scored three. And they'd have scored 3 in 2 games. Yeah. Both games. It's amazing. But then when you think back, you think, yeah, well, that makes sense. Because that's the style they've always played. You know,
1-0, 2-1.
Yeah. And
get
it's
in
just
front and defend for 83 minutes.
Yeah. And it's just not that sort of tournament. My favorite game so far, though, I think would be the Netherlands-Ukraine game. That was an absolute belter. It was 3-2 in the end. The Spain-Sweden game. This was a crazy game. Passes completed. Here's another stat for you, mate. Passes completed in that game. Spain, 849 passes. Sweden, 106. Yeah. And final score was 0-0. I mean, that just shows you, man. I mean, you can have all the position. I think they had 80. It was something like 87% of possession. I
watched the first half and then just fast forwarded through the second half.
It's just, and what did it look like? Pass. It's just crazy. I mean, those sort of stats are just, and it just shows you why we love football, really. I mean, absolutely. You know, the positioners and everything. Yeah, the Holland-Ukraine match, France-Germany was an interesting match as well. And not least of the reasons was because Antonio Rudiger decided that he liked a little bit of a taste of Pogba.
He had a bit of a nibble.
He just bit the back of his shoulder, didn't he? With that mask on, he reminded me a little bit of Silence of the Lambs. Didn't you?
He was just waiting for a nice Chianti.
Exactly. And then I thought he might have been able to be milked out of Pogba's nipples because he tried to grab him around the front too, didn't he? It was very, very weird. That was very, very weird. And he didn't even get suspended for that, which is so strange. And yet Marko Arnautovic gets suspended for a verbal attack on the North.
That's a very nice thing to do.
Marko Arnautovic, he's just a nasty man. And I think he plays better when he's nasty. So I don't think they'll really be worried about that. Also in that French game as well, arguments about the concussion rule after French fullback Benjamin Pavard was knocked out cold. He hit the ground in a hell of a heap, and he would definitely not be allowed on the field if he was playing rugby league. But he just get a bit of magic water and come back on. What do you make of all that? The way that football handles their head injury sort of thing.
They've got a bit to work on in that regard. You know, a number of times you see guys go out for head clashes, and you know suddenly they're back on the field again in a couple of minutes, and no real inspection, no HIA or anything like that. Even though it has been brought in at Premier League level, but I think we might have seen it happen once during the season where somebody was allowed to come on and replace the player while he was being tested, and he failed the test anyway, so the players stayed on. But there's still a bit of work to go in football, and I mean they're the ones that are having a lot of the dementia problems now.
I know. And now the biggest sport in the world, they've probably got the most to lose. And you look at a sport like even rugby league, especially NFL, all the work that they do around that, they know that their sport is at risk if they don't. You know, they're always going, maintain the care of the person of the player. And the way that football always says, it's the referee's job to look after the players on the field, and if there's a dirty act, the red card comes out real fast. I just think that they really, really need to get their house in order when it comes to that. We may have already seen the goal of the season in the tournament. Patrick Schick.
Patrick Schick.
Woo!
Unfortunately, it was against my favourite Sweaty Socks, who you'd have to say were disappointing against the Czech Republic. They just didn't quite get into gear, did they, Steve Clark's side? And, as much as, 2 or 3 of those players worked really, really hard, including our favourite Andy Robertson, they just couldn't get it going. And the look of abject misery on Robertson's face at the end of the game really told a story. But, I mean, yeah, you can't do anything about those goals from halfway.
That was crazy. That was a crazy goal.
But
I mean, he hit it so perfectly. Yeah.
But saying that, what was David Marshall thinking being halfway between his penalty area and the centre circle?
Mate, he's a Scottish goalkeeper. They've got history of this sort of stuff. They go walkabout. But the thing is, I mean, look, if you're the goalie, yeah, he was in the wrong position, but you're going to get 1,000 of those shots in your career, and maybe one of them is going to go in. Exactly. It's like so. It just had to happen there, though, didn't it? And of course, the Welsh. They've proved that, in their second game, they were pretty poor in their first game, a lot like the Scots. So they've proved that if you have a poor first game, it's not the end of the world for you. They had a great win in their second game. And Aaron Ramsey and Gareth Bale coming out of golfing coming out of
Real Madrid retirement.
Absolutely proving that he can play, though. Again, I mean, both of them playing absolutely out of their skin. The whole team playing really well, and 4 points. Looks like they're through to the second round, which will please Kerry Jones, because I told him they weren't getting out of the group. So there you go.
Okay, we've been waxing lyrical about Scotland and Wales. Yep. Do you think the England fans are premature in saying they're going to win?
Absolutely, but that's what they do all the time. Keep going, keep singing, keep going, because it's just going to be even more hilarious when you finally fall flat on your ass when you come up against a good side. That's what's going to happen. I guarantee you that's what's going to happen. Gareth South, mind you, Calvin Phillips was the player for me in that England game. He played so well. I've always thought he was really a defensive midfielder, but he was allowed to go forward a little bit, and he produced that beautiful pass for Raheem Sterling to score the goal. I'm really impressed by him, but they are just so funny, aren't they? Before the tournament, they're like, oh, we picked the wrong players. They have one good result, and all of a sudden, that's coming home. We're going to win. We are so good. It was 1-0. It was 1-0. It was.
Was rather surprised at Raheem Sterling getting player of the game.
That was stupid.
I didn't actually think he had a great game, and he nearly blew that chance from Phillips.
His finishing is pretty average, eh? I mean, it's like he almost wants to smash each one. It's almost like he's taking a big backswing. Players always seem to get close to him and sort of half block shots. I don't think he's a natural finisher at all. He's a good runner with the ball, but that was crazy. Phillips should have been man of the match. He was by far the best player. Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, something that we have spoken out strongly about during the Premier League season was the officiating. But I've got to say, how good has it been at this tournament?
Mate, it's been awesome. What's been happening is that they've basically been letting things go, haven't they? They just say, no, play on. If it's a foul, they'll blow, and if it's not, they won't. And then not just the officiator. I think, have they been given a directive before the tournament? If so, can they give a similar directive to the Premier League before the start of the Premier League?
Yes, I hope Mike Riley, the Premier League's boss,
take note.
Boss, has been watching, because the instances that VAR have been called on are few and far between, and really only time they've called on VAR has been what you would call as something obvious.
When they should be.
Yeah, exactly. They're not forensically.
Have you seen any match? I've tried to watch as much as I can. I've seen highlights of just about every game. Have you seen any match where they brought out those lines?
No.
It happens sometimes 2 or 3 times every game in the Premier League. So why? You know what it is? I know why it is. I know why they haven't been pulling out those lines. It's because in the VAR box, they've got a director, they've got a person that does the VAR, and they've got an offside VAR official in the box who all that person looks at is the offsides. And as soon as it's offside, he will call it offside, and they don't have to wait 5 minutes for them to fiddle around with lines. That's the only thing he's looking at. So for me, that's a no-brainer. Get someone in there to do that.
It seems to me that they're only calling obvious offsides.
Wow.
So, which, yeah, I know, shock horror, which is fantastic. And long may this continue because the football is so much more enjoyable to watch.
Absolutely. If it's a goal, sure, you can go back and check it, right?
Yeah.
If it's not a goal and it's not obvious, then carry on.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that what we did before we had VAR? Remember when it was like, unless it's clear and obvious, play on. Remember when they used to give offsides? Oh, we might just be, they're getting a bit close. If it's not clear and obvious, just play on. Yeah. That needs to be a little bit of that common sense applied in the VAR. It's just been great. It's been great. The football's been good, but better because of it as well.
Yeah, when VAR was brought in, that was the
World Cup. It was. And it was the World Cup 2014, was it? The first time we saw?
But it was only for clear and obvious errors. It wasn't for forensically inspecting every offside call or every tackle or every, you know.
And another
this morning there were in the Holland game against Austria, Holland, the Netherlands, I should say, got a penalty. And it was a clear and obvious error that the referee didn't see the tackle being made inside the penalty area.
Yeah.
So,
and the other thing is the other thing that that they do really well is the handball leading up to a goal. I mean, they've just made that black and white, and they've said we don't care if it's a deliberate act, whatever it is, if it leads to a goal and it's in the lead up to a goal and it hits the hand, it's a handball. And as much as I don't really like the fact that I don't think that all of those are handballs, at least I've made that judgment. I've said, if it hits the hand, it's a handball. So now all the players know, and the argument's taken away from everyone because because the case in point was the Chiellini goal. I don't know whether you saw the goal that was ruled out the other day when he scored the first goal when they played their second match, and he jumped up and he was sort of trying for the header and it hit it. Slightly brushed his hand as he went up for the header, and they were arguing about it, but they couldn't really. I mean, they argued about it for a couple of seconds, and then they were like, well, it was lead up to a goal, and the ref was just like, there was a definite handball. So they've just clarified those sort of situations.
Yeah.
Get them to the Premier League. Get those people that are making those decisions to the Premier League, because if I have another Premier League like last year, mate, I mean...
Oh, absolutely crazy.
You know, it just shows you how beautiful the game can be, though, again, eh?
Oh, quite right.
You know?
Anyway, talking of the Premier League, the draw's out.
Yes, it is.
Yep. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, pretty good, actually, isn't it? Norwich first up. Then home games, Burnley and Chelsea. And I think I've got, who we got after that? We got Burnley and Chelsea. Then we got Leeds away and then Crystal Palace at home. So that's a pretty good start, especially if we can, we get Chelsea at home that third game. If we can win that one and get a little bit of gap between them and us early doors will be great. So, pretty good for us. I'm pretty happy with those. What about you?
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy if I was a Chelsea fan. They've got a good start with Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, and Man City, 4 of their first 6 games.
Oh, well, they're the Champions League winners, aren't they? They should be able to handle that. You know, should be brought off a duck's back for the team that's best in Europe.
And the highlights for the opening day, we've got Man United against Leeds, the old the Battle of the Roses,
with a few fans coming down from Leeds to sit at the old toilet.
And Spurs, Man City. Spurs, we still don't know who their boss is going to be. Everybody thought it was going to be Paulo Fonseca from Rome, but he's
has he ruled himself out now?
Ruled out, and now they're looking at Gennaro Gattuso.
Far out.
Are
they really?
Who's been sacked by Fiorentina after just 6 games.
After being sacked by Napoli before that, and then he got sacked by, I don't know, mate.
I'll tell you what, if I was a Spurs fan, I would not be happy.
Oh, dude. That'll keep Harry Kane there.
Yeah. Interesting happenings across the other side of Stanley Park too. In Everton. It looked like Nuno Espirito Santo was the favourite and being lined up there, but now they're saying that if that falls over, they're going to plug for our Rafa.
Yeah. I had a text from a mate a couple of days ago saying, what are your thoughts on if Rafa goes to Everton? I said, what I actually said to him was, well, mate, he's a mercenary, and I think most Liverpool fans have realised that forever since he went to Chelsea. Really, he's looking for work. It's not a Michael Owen situation. It's not a thing where he's going to play for our bitter rivals after creating a legacy with us after being born, in Liverpool. He's not a Liverpudlian, even though we took it to our hearts and perhaps most important thing, he's going to Everton. So they're not exactly going to be a threat. And the only time that I will perhaps go back on what I've just said is when they beat us at Anfield next season. if that happens, then stuff him. I hate him. But mate, I don't really have a problem with Rafa going to Everton. If he wants to go there, hell of a job there, mate. You've got a hell of a job on your hands if you go there. And I've also seen the style of football that his teams have been playing for the last 5 or 6 years. And I can't imagine that the crowds there are going to go berserk when Rafa's playing that sort of defensive style either.
Well, the big thing is, as a Liverpool fan, I'm not particularly bothered either way, whether he goes there or not. But as an Everton fan, I don't think I'd be overly happy.
No,
having a manager who, in 2007, after a local derby, was in a small club.
Well, they are small compared to Liverpool. So
they are. And I remember when it happened, and there was quite a lot of ire amongst the Everton fans, and I just do not think he'll be taken too kindly by Everton fans. I've got an Everton mate here in Greytown who is sort of like, good manager, but I don't know if I could have a former Liverpool boss as managing our team.
Well, it could be worse. You could get Sam Allardyce.
Well, he's managed Everton before.
I know, and they hated him.
Yep.
So, I can see them. It could be a little bit like a Chelsea situation. They absolutely hated him there, didn't they?
Yeah.
But he had a bit more to play with there. I just think I've got a hell of a job there, whoever gets the job, and without all that baggage already.
Yeah, well, Neville Southall, the former great Everton goalkeeper, has come out and said, I'd rather watch Everton play in the Championship under Duncan Ferguson than under Rafa Benitez in the Premiership.
Neville Southall. Have you seen the size of that man recently?
He's a big boy.
He's enormous. He's enormous. Yeah. All right. Any more football? Oh yeah. Just something else in the football before we move to the code. Gary Hooper has re-signed with the Phoenix.
Yes, great.
Re-signed after leaving a little bit early. He's re-signed for next year, which that's great news. Of course, the Phoenix missing out on the playoffs. Gary Hooper, great to see him back. Hopefully score a few goals for us next season. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's a great signing. We're obviously missing out on Tomer Hemed, who took a while to get going. I'll be honest.
Yep.
Took him 5 or 6 games before he really got into his stride. But with a proper pre-season, we're going to get a fit Gary Hooper right at the start of the season. If you remember 2 years back when he came, he was still hanging on to an injury and didn't really have a proper pre-season. And it was 7 or 8 games before he actually managed to play regularly and get into the side. And I mean, obviously his goal scoring capability is very good. So,
but even when he was playing 10, 15 minutes off the bench, he still looked a class above. I thought he looked really good. I mean, he's a class player.
And it's just going to be so good having the Phoenix back in New Zealand,
isn't it?
I'm sure you'd agree with the Warriors.
Absolutely, mate. I can't wait.
Yes, but anyway, let's have a chat about this weekend here, and I'm sure you'll be backing the Otago Highlanders.
By the way, welcome to the House of Pain of Tane. No, go the Blues. We could finally win something. Where are the Crusaders? Hang on, what's happened to your lot? Where are they?
Crusaders finished on the same points as.
Oh, was there a boundary count back?
You
didn't hit enough boundaries, mate. That's what it is.
Enough boundaries.
Oh, mate, I'm just pleased to see the Blues in any sort of final. I thought I actually watched the last. I mean, mate, I haven't watched a lot of rugby this year, but the last couple of weeks I've watched a bit, and I'm really impressed with the Blues. I think they've tightened up their style, their ship, they just seem to be a lot more accurate than what they were earlier in the season. Whether that's just because they've had more time together, whether it's better coaching, I don't know what it is. They just look like a different side. They really do, to the one that I saw earlier in the season. They're playing, I mean, dare I say it, they're playing almost Crusader-like rugby, just really clinical and brutal, and they hit the ad line, and there's always players running in support. I've just loved watching them the last couple of weeks, and it should be an absolute cracker against the Highlanders because they've been playing bloody great too. So yeah, man, and two sides that really, for the last few years, have really struggled. So it's just nice to see those two sides meeting in a final. I think that's great. I think it's great.
Yeah. As a Crusader fan, I'm calling this tournament the Carabao Cup. Of rugby. We won everything else, so let somebody else have a chance.
Still a trophy, mate. Still a trophy.
Still a trophy. You're quite right. Well,
it's not the Charity Shield. It's not the Charity Shield. We'll call it a trophy if we win it.
Quite right. Well, the Landers of recent finals history, winning in 2015, while it's 18 years since the Blues have lifted a trophy. So
unbelievable.
Yeah, long time.
And can you remember who the person was that lifted the trophy? I
Xavier
can.
Rush.
Thank you. Xavier Rush. I think he was found asleep outside the cop station the next night, wasn't he?
Something like that.
Oh, good on you, Xavier. Good on you.
And of course, Aaron Smith, who will be running around in the number 9 jersey for the Highlanders. I think.
Geez, how good has he been? How good has he been this season? I mean, I thought maybe 4 or 5 years ago he was the best halfback I'd ever seen. Then a couple of years ago, or maybe 18 months or so ago, I thought his game's really not looking as good, sharp. I really thought he was on the decline. He has just raised his game, hasn't he, mate, in the last 18 months, couple of years. He is, I mean, I've never seen him play better.
Yeah. Oh, unbelievable. And what I was going to say was he is the only survivor from that final in 2015, I think. I read that the other day.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. So
that's amazing. 6 years. He's the only guy left. Wow.
Yeah. Wow. So much turnaround, isn't there?
That's true. Yeah.
Especially in rugby.
Yeah.
And needless to say, there's no survivors from the 2003 Super Rugby One.
Thanks for pointing that one out, mate. Thanks for that. It'd be a bit of a worry if there was, to be fair. Maybe in the coaching box there would be.
It's all about finals experience. Finals are different games, and to have Smithy's got that finals experience.
So you're back in the Highlanders.
Highlanders have to be favourites.
Oh, shut up.
And they're from the South Island.
Oh, go home.
So I noticed a new character around Blues training this week. Some guy by the name of Barrett. Is it Brian Barrett?
Bruce, I think. Bruce. Yeah,
Bruce,
no. I saw that as well. World's most expensive water boy. Must be something magic in those bottles.
You'll be providing that genuine H2O.
Really, he only sings when he's winning, doesn't he? I mean, we lose for years. We have a final finally. Finally, he shows up. He shows up because we finally start winning, and now he wants to play for us.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I suppose
he's going to miss out because Terry Black has been past fit, but big Tom Robinson's out. He's going to be a big miss for the Blues.
Did they say why he's out? Well, I think he looked like he got concussed last week. Is that okay? Because he's got a hard head too. Whoever he his head against is probably worse off than him. No, he's been playing real well, hasn't he, mate? And I just love a good ringer in the forward pack. I just think it always looks great, doesn't it? So no, he'll be a big miss, mate. But I think the way that Satutu's been playing recently, oh, geez, mate, he looks so good off the back of the scrum. Last week, I thought, man, imagine him off the back of the All Blacks scrum at the moment. He's just so athletic. He's almost as fast as his dad was. Looks like a back. It looks like a big winger off the back of the scrum. Love it.
Yeah, I just guess it depends, and we'll talk about the All Blacks in a minute. But I think Tutu probably will be the All Black number 8, depending on where they want to play Ardie Savia.
That's right. Yeah,
they want to play him in the 7 jersey, and then Hoskins, I think, will start in the number 8. and unless they decide that Artie's better suited at number 8, I don't know.
Well, I think you have to have Hoskins. I just think he's just so dynamic off the back, you know.
And I mean, it's without Robinson, it's still a pretty handy loose trio with Dalton Papali'i on one side and Akira Ioane on the other.
Absolutely, mate. Akira, you know, probably if it wasn't for a little bit of injury, he might have been there anyway. And Dalton Papali'i, he's just coming on in leaps and bounds, isn't he, mate? He could be anything, mate. He really could. He could be. I mean, I don't know. Just the athleticism of that man. He reminds me. I don't want to say. He reminds me of a little bit of Richie McCaw. You know, a young version. He just seems to be everywhere. There seems to be more than one of them on the field sometimes. You know, he's a great player. He'd have to be somewhere close to the All Blacks, surely.
Anyway, talking about the All Blacks, the squad's going to be named on Monday night. So we'll
go over that next week.
Bolters?
Whoo, mate! Oh, you better start.
Squads a couple of weeks ago.
We did.
So is there anybody outside of those names that we picked, or is there somebody that we did mention but didn't think might make it?
Okay, I've got one for you. What about the Blues halfback, little Ranger? Little redhead. I quite like him. I think he's been playing really well recently. I mean, obviously halfback, we got a little bit of depth there, but I don't know. I just think, he could be our third halfback. I think he's a good one because I think he's also got a little bit of size about him. You know, he's a little bit of an extra loose forward, and the first two halfbacks we're picking don't have any size about them at all. So he offers a little bit of a point of difference too. So someone like him, maybe. And Dalton Papali'i, he's not really a bolter. I mean, I'd have him very close to it. Maybe in the forwards. I'm just trying to think. What about you, mate? You got anyone?
Well, I'm going for the guy that we just talked about, actually, Tom Robinson. I think he could be a bolter in the
definitely
purely because of his versatility as well. He can play blindside, number 8, and he can also play lock as well. So he could be one in the backs.
In the backs, yeah.
We did talk a bit about Leicester Fainga'anuku from the Crusaders.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he's been at the forefront of the All Black selectors thinking, but he could be a bolter. And as a third, first 5, maybe Mitchell Hunt. I think he's doing a great season.
That's not a bad call. That's not a bad call, and put him in the environment and see how he goes.
Yeah.
It's
so long hard, obviously, behind the likes of Richie Mo'unga, Beauden Barrett, and Damien McKenzie.
You put him in there for experience, wouldn't you? I mean,
it depends on where they're going to play Barrett, and also where, you know, what they're going to do with McKenzie. What
are they going to do with Will Jordan? I mean, see now he's the guy. He's not a bolter, but if he made the starting lineup, he'd be a bolter because there's other guys ahead of him. I don't know. See, Will Jordan for me has to be there. I mean,
he has to start for me.
I'd agree. I mean, I just think he's the best. Yeah. It's difficult, mate. Once again, it's picking the All Blacks. It's almost like picking the Black Caps now, isn't it? Well, you have to leave someone out that you don't really want to leave out, you know? Yeah. No, but we're actually, the All Blacks are doing a signing session. Signing sessions are doing all the stuff prior to the Bledisloe in the next week or so in Auckland at the moment as well. So the Bledisloe Cup is doing the rounds up here, and I've got a signing session with them at Sky City at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. So if anyone's up in Auckland, 1 p.m. at Wednesday, Sky City, I'll have 3 All Blacks with me up there. Love to see anyone there. Marvelous.
That'll be great. So, what's happening in the other oval ball code?
Well, first of all, we had Origin, didn't we? We had Origin.
I do. I think before we get on to that, though, I noticed during the week that it wasn't really big news, but I guess in some respects it is big news, and that's the fact that Boyd Cordner has called it a day.
Yeah, man, he's had a number of concussions over the last 2 or 3 years. It seemed like every time he ran on the field, he got concussed. He's a tough nut, man. He came from the bush. His dad played first grade rugby league, and he's done it all really. He played for Australia, captain New South Wales. Won Origins. He's a very, very tough player, but just concussions got him in the end. I did hear an interview with him, though, say that the reason he's been concussed, he reckons 90% of his concussions are all his fault because of the way he tackled, not being tackled, which is nice to hear, really, because there's been so much stuff about the head high tackles and all that sort of stuff. So he's sort of saying that he put himself in harm, but I've seen that guy so knocked out so many times, and it just seemed like it didn't seem to take quite so much of a hit to knock him out. And that's the way that concussions work, I mean,
do see it though in those real top class quality players, whether it be rugby league or rugby. I mean, you look at Richie McCaw early in his career, he suffered from concussion problems as well, as did Kieran Reid. And you couldn't say any of them were related to a high tackle or, to the head or anything like that. It's just because they play the game so bloody hard.
I know. And you're sticking your head in places where most people go, oh, I don't really want to stick my head there. But these guys are just warriors and they just don't care. They're young guys and they just don't really think about it. Jock Hobbs, even before that, remember? I mean, and that
in years gone by, you look at the injury problems that the likes of Laurie Daly, Bradley Clyde had throughout their career. It was just because they played the game so bloody hard.
Absolutely.
That they just were putting themselves in a position to get injured.
Yeah, it's a tough sport, man. And I mean, and that's the thing with this crackdown on head highs. The talk about it in the last week or so is people taking flops. Because now they're getting hit around the head, and they're just like, oh, I've been hit in the head. And what they're saying they have to do then is if the person's going to flop, then that person that's flopping has to go off for a head injury assessment, even if they're pretending to be, so that you get that equalization. I mean, it's a tough sport, man. I mean, people are, and it's just so fast moving for people to say, oh, look, just don't tackle high. I mean, they just don't know about the sport. People are running a million miles an hour. I heard Paul Gallen sort of saying, look, it's okay. He said, the technique we're taught when we're defending in the middle is to keep your elbows lower, but we've got people closer to us. So it's easier for us to sort of shepherd them to the next person, so that we don't go high. But he said, if you're on the edge and you're facing a quick, footed center who steps and you just hang it, just hang your arm out and you get him. I mean, it's not like they mean to do it. It just happens. It just happens so fast. And it's just such a tough sport. Boyd Cordner, and also Brett Morris has retired as well, which is really interesting. Chronic injuries. That guy got smashed so many times. I mean, he just seems so durable, but obviously, you get smashed that many times. It's just tough. So yeah, two great players. Unfortunately, both out of the Roosters, retiring this week. So yeah.
Before we get on to the State of Origin,
mate.
A good friend of mine who is a staunch New South Wales fan, even though he lives on the Gold Coast, put a lovely little comment on Facebook last Thursday morning. He put it on. He said, I had a busy day today. I had to get up at 5:10 a.m. Although in Queensland, I think you call that 50 to 6.
Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I bet you. Oh, that's so clever. How long has he been saving that one up for, mate?
Years.
It's a beauty. It's a beauty. No, it was 50 to 6. It was an annihilation, really, the biggest result ever. I just basically said to everyone that's been bleating on about how Origin is the greatest form of rugby league, I said, if that's the pinnacle, is that really the pinnacle? Because the Kiwis would have beaten both those sides last night. That's what I said to them. I just don't believe it is the pinnacle anymore, mate. I just don't think it is. And it's, I used to love watching the Origin. I watched the first half and I turned it off. It's like, it used to be the pinnacle.
The days of Wally Lewis and Mark Geyer and Benny Elias and
a bit of Biffo.
Big Sam Backo.
Absolutely. And even into the 90s and early 2000s, I still loved it, but it's just, I think it's run its race for me, especially, for people that aren't invested, don't live in New South Wales or Queensland. if it's not tight, if it's not a close contest, and I think Queensland sort of took a little bit of the joy out of it for me when they won so many, but even then they had such a great side, so it was so good to watch them because so many times also New South Wales were always bleating about how they were going to beat them and then they lost again. But yeah, I just can't see how it's the pinnacle anymore, mate. I just can't see how it's the pinnacle. It really disappointed me. I mean, I support the Blues, so I mean, I was happy with the result, but yeah, just really hardly the pinnacle anymore.
Just take a note of that, folks. Aaron Mann watched only the first half of a State of Origin.
Hey, I did catch the I caught the second half in the morning, but I just thought it's too late. No, I mean, I caught it on replay, but then when I saw it was 50, I said, really? Fast forward, watch a couple of tries. Yeah. The Warriors as well, of course. So we got a bit of a hammering last week. That was probably the worst game of the season for us against the bloody Storm. One day we'll beat the Storm. I think we've lost 13 or 14 in a row against the Storm. We used to be their bogey team. Now they are certainly our bogey team. We can't beat them. They are just too good. We played terribly. I thought we were horrible. It was an awful performance. We're going to have to get a hell of a lot better before we play the Knights tomorrow at 5:00. Just a couple of things on the Warriors. We've signed Aaron Pene. No, not from the
Otago number 8.
The Otago number 8 from the early 90s. That was a good loose forward combo they had back then. Aaron Pene, Jamie Joseph, and Josh Cromfeld. Not bad, eh? Not bad. But no, this is a different Aaron Pene, thank God. Because if the Warriors had have signed that Aaron Pene,
well, he's the same age as us.
There'd be questions. Maybe as a consultant, but not as a player. No, he plays for the Storm. He's a big prop. He looks the goods. He can't get a game there. Not surprising because they've got so many good forwards. So he's going to play for us from next year. And noticed last night, signed immediately. He may be available this week or next week. Dallin Watene-Zeleznia from the Canterbury Bulldogs is signed for the Warriors. So obviously when we let big Ken Mamalo go, we had him in mind. We had him lined up. He's a good player. He's captained the Kiwis before. He's got a bit of footwork about him, and that's the sort of winger I think that Nathan Brown is obviously looking for. So that's some good news. The only other thing regarding the Warriors is Reece Walsh will be back for the Warriors, or will he? Because there's rumours that he may be called into the Queensland State of Origin side. No.
Does he really want to play for them?
Do it. He does. He wants to play for Queensland. He said he does. He wants to play for them. Please don't do it, though, mate. He's too young. They'll break him in half. And then So, yeah, Reece Walsh for Origin. Please no, but probably he will be called in. And, yeah, that would be terrible. The only thing worse than being a Warriors fan after last thing, obviously being a Queensland fan. Being a Broncos fan. They were smashed 46-0 by the Bunnies last night. Tavita Pangai Jr., who a couple of years ago was perhaps the best prop in the competition, has been told now look elsewhere for next year, even though he's got a 3-year contract. It was a really interesting interview with him after the game last night. They're saying,
well, the game going on in the background.
Yeah, a replay of it going on in the background. Yeah, it's crazy. He, after the game, so obvious, so honest. They were like saying, what are you going to, they've told, I got called in this week. They told me I'm not wanted next year. I've got a contract for 2 years, but I guess it's not worth it. Not worth the paper it's printed. I'm thinking, well, it is. You could stay there and just collect your money. But weird. I mean, they're getting rid of so many players. The Broncos, man. Poor Broncos.
What's happened to that big prop they had that was that burst into the apartment?
He's still playing for them. What's his name? Yeah, the Warriors were looking at him as well. What's his name? I can't remember his name. But anyway, yeah, he's still playing for them, but he's up and down. He's a good player, but he's just up and down like their whole team. They just can't get any consistency. They don't have any halves. Yeah. So if you don't have any halves, it doesn't really matter what your forward pack does. You're just not going to be driven in the right areas of the field. And I mean, they've always had good players, and also their junior system is good as well. But at the moment, they're even losing those. So yeah, mate, it's hard. It's hard for the poor old Broncos. I'm just trying to see if I can find out what that guy's name is because it's doing my head in. Matt Lodge was the guy's name.
Matt Lodge, yes.
Matt Lodge, yeah. Very interesting story about that man in New York City and busting down someone's door because he was too drunk or something, a few years ago. But better rugby league player than he is a drinker. So, the Warriors play the Knights tomorrow. Go the Warriors. And, of course, we're back. We're back after the final game of the season against the Canterbury Bulldogs at Mount Smart Stadium. It will be a full house. I just hope we're still in the playoff picture. Fortunately, all the other teams ahead of us, just about all the other teams lost as well. So we're still only 2 points out of the 8, amazingly.
Yes, quite right indeed. Quite right indeed.
All right, so tell me, let's go. Should we go to play ball?
Baseball. Yeah, well, it's all happening. Great news last week. Auckland Tuatara and Howick Pakuranga Hawks pitcher Elliot Johnston signs for the New York Mets.
Wow.
Great opportunity for Elliot, and couldn't go to a better young man. Elliot, I've followed his progress ever since he was about 15 years old, playing for the Howick Pakuranga under-16s many years ago, and just has done a great job. He's played 3 seasons in the ABL now. His first season was a real learning experience, and he finished up with a double figures ERA, which is not good.
Mm-hmm.
Second season with the Tuatara, he was absolutely on fire and won rookie of the year with a 1 point bugger all ERA. And this season just gone, obviously the Tuatara weren't involved, but he played for the Adelaide Giants. Unfortunately, injury got the better of him, and he only pitched in a couple of games. So, but great to see he's stuck at it, and he's obviously, with the help of great Baseball New Zealand friend DJ Carrasco, former Mets pitcher himself, alerted the Mets scouts to young Elliot, and so they've signed him. So he's heading off to the States any day now.
Wow. And what sort of pitcher is he, Macca?
He's a relief pitcher, so he's coming in, middle of after the starter, just to try and keep the hitters intact. I spoke to him briefly after he signed, and the boys obviously over the moon, and has promised that he will come on to the Hot Air Sports podcast.
Awesome.
Very soon in the future. So
awesome. Even though you've got ties with the Yankees, what a great guy! What a great guy!
Right. And I mean, the New York Mets, that's a massive team.
Massive team now.
Massive
the biggest team in New York.
No, I wouldn't quite.
No, actually, they are wanting to rival the Yankees, aren't they? They've got a new owner. He's got plenty of money. They've got a hell of a roster, and they're doing very well this year. So, I mean, they're looking to rival the Yankees. They are a great team. What a fantastic opportunity for the young man.
Yeah, so he joins Kyle Glodowski and Ben Thompson in the minors, while Auckland's Jason Matthews, who we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, had a great season with University of South Carolina Upstate. He is now playing professional ball in the independent leagues with the Great Falls Voyagers in Montana in the Pioneer League. I looked up there where Great Falls in Montana is, and it's not exactly New York. It's in the middle of nowhere in Montana. Mind you, Montana is
sounds cool. Sounds cool to me.
So so he started life with a hiss and a roar. In 8 games, he's already got a batting average of .414, 12 hits, 3 doubles, a triple, 6 runs batted in, and 7 runs himself.
Jeez.
Now the MLB amateur draft takes place over the 11th to the 13th of July. And if he carries on that form, we've all got fingers crossed that he gets picked up by a franchise. Just a wonderful story, as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago. So, great start to life as a pro for Jason. In minor league action, Kyle Glodowski is on the 7-day disabled list with a right elbow strain. But Ben Thompson has been pitching well at the low A Augusta Green Jackets, an affiliate of the Atlanta Braves. And he's appeared in 10 games now as a relief pitcher. He's picked up 2 wins on 11 hits, 3 earned runs with 8 walks, and has struck out 28 hitters in those 10 games. So going very well, and his ERA is just 1.35. So
Nice.
he's doing very well, and if he carries on this form, we could see him promoted up the Braves system.
Lots of Kiwis doing really good, eh?
Yeah, it's great. And I mean, there are other Kiwis still playing college ball in the States, although their seasons have just finished. Ayrton Laird from Central City. Kieran Palmer is doing really well at Ranger College in Texas. And Connor Gleason is playing. He played actually in the same division as Jason in the Big Ten competition, and he's based in Carolina as well. So good luck to those guys. In the majors, Tampa Bay still leading the way in the American League East, game ahead of Boston. Yankees 7 games back after a horror run.
Yeah, you're not going well at the moment, mate.
Yeah, beat Toronto in the last 2 games. That pulls us ahead of them.
You didn't do too well against Boston, though, in that series, did you?
Nah, that's all right. We'll come back. White Sox leading the way in the Centrals. They're 4 games ahead of Cleveland Indians, and Kansas City a further 6.5 games back. So they've got a bit of work to do. In the West, Oakland still leading the way ahead of the cheating Houston Astros. 2.5 games. Sorry, Martin Reed, had to pop that in. Interesting story, though, coming out. The Major League Baseball are cracking down on substances being used by pitchers to try.
Yeah, I saw this.
Ball, which is really harsh. And the White Sox pitcher, Carlos Rodon, who pitched a no-hitter earlier in the season, has come out and said, how can you suspend pitchers for trying to grip the ball when none of the Houston Astros players got suspended? Which is a pretty fair comment, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know enough about what advantage they're getting from this. I mean, the thing is, it seems like for the last few years, everything has been weighted in the batsman's favor, in the batter's favor, anyway.
Exactly.
So, has there been a massive dip in the amount of runs being scored this year?
Well, I mean, they are attributing it to the way the game is being played now, the home run or nothing ethos. Teams aren't putting the ball in play, getting runners on base. I mean, the other day, Tampa scored 13 runs or
I saw that.
Runs.
And the Mariners scored 10.
Not one home run.
No. Great.
And they're leading.
Isn't that good? Isn't that good?
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great. And they've got their payroll. Basically, 2 players in the Yankees are earning the same as the whole Tampa Bay payroll.
Surely the sport will evolve. I mean, that's the whole thing. The home runs and all that sort of thing. I get that, but surely there needs to be an adjustment from the pitchers. I mean, when there's jeopardy on a pitch, surely you can always throw a ball. You can always. I know you can't if the bases are loaded, etc. But you could. I was watching a game the other day, for instance, where this pitcher who had his fastball was only 90, and they were like saying, this guy's got the slowest fastball in the major leagues, but because it's a little bit slower and his accuracy is just about perfect, he's a great pitcher. And when he got into those situations where the big guys came in, he was just pitching it at exactly the place where, because he was a ground ball pitcher, so he was just making sure that he was down in the spots where they could not hit it out of the park. So surely there has to be something on the pitches about all this home run stuff, and surely them being able to hold the ball better would stop those home runs, wouldn't it? I mean,
the thing about using sticky substances, what they call it, like pine tar, like that, is it helps them grip the ball, but it also helps them with spinning the ball. And so if you see a ball coming at you with a tight circle on it, it's going to dip away.
Yeah.
At some stage.
Yep.
If it's got a less of a spin on it, you can see it backspin, it's
sure.
But I mean, you've got like
1.25
of a second to make that decision.
A tenth of it, a quarter of a second or something.
As you say, the everything is in the hitter's favor. So I look, if they're really abusing it, if it's obvious, like Yankee, well, he's Twins now, but Yankees pitcher Michael Pineda a few years ago got ejected from a game because he had a massive wad of pine tar on the back of his neck.
That's right.
It was so obvious,
Hmm.
that he was never going to get away with it, and he got ejected. Fair enough, I say.
I saw a guy the other day who did it with the cap, and then the umpire told him to remove the cap, and then he removed the cap. They couldn't find anything on it anyway. And he was like, well, what? I don't know, mate. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the other place they put it,
They put it up here on the peak, don't they? They keep touching it every time because
peak or on your forearm, they touch the forearm under the somewhere hidden on the glove. Look, if you can hide it and get away with it, good luck to you. But if you're going to do it, obviously, like Pineda did and have a big wad on the back of his neck, which stands out like dog's balls, yeah, sure, you're going to get.
Has there been a big change though? Why are the MLB finally deciding this is it? This is it. Is it just because they're looking for something to do? Or?
No, I don't know. But weird. As Rodon said, I mean, if you're handing out suspensions for somebody having a bit of pine tar on their cap, and you're not suspending the Houston Astros players who have admitted to cheating, then where's the game going?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Anyway, back to the standings. National League, Mets have got a 5-game lead over the Phillies in the Central. Chicago Cubs and Milwaukee are tied for the lead, with Cincinnati just 2 games back and St. Louis only 3 games back. So that's a good a division to keep following. Only 3 games separating the top 4. In the West, San Francisco Giants still confusing all the pundits by still leading the West. Dodgers are 2.5 games back, and the Padres 6.5 games back. So, a few tight races in the standings, and Yankees are leading 3-0 over Toronto as we speak.
You'll finish this podcast just in time to see a Grand Slam home run in Toronto win the game 4-3. Here you go. Okay. What about, have you covered all the baseball?
Oh, yeah, we're done with the baseball. Time to talk about some cricket. We've got the big final this weekend, as we alluded to earlier. Did mention there is a reserve day scheduled for the final, should a result not be found in 5 days, which may prove useful, as you said, given the wet forecast over the next few days.
Yeah, timeless test. Make it timeless. Keep them over there until they get a result, maybe. Yeah, it's... I guess, well, first of all, we beat England, didn't we, in that series? We beat them 1-0. We would have beaten them 2-0 if it wasn't for the rain at Lord's. So, and we actually thrashed them, changed our side by, so basically our second side. We still thrashed them, showing them what we got. Now we are ranked number 1 in test matches, number 1 in one day internationals, and we're ranked 3rd in the T20s. And I don't really give a shit about the T20s, so we're ranked number 1 in the 2 forms that I care about the most, which is absolutely fantastic news and a great result for New Zealand cricket and Kane Williamson and his team. I'm very, very proud of them. The problem now arises, though, mate, doesn't it? Because we've got so much talent over there. Who do you pick? Who's your 11 for that now? Well, obviously, some of it picks itself.
Top 6 is picked.
Absolutely.
No worries there.
Yep, absolutely. Unless there's injuries or something, absolutely. Yep. So it's the bowlers. Who are you going to pick in the bowling?
I don't think you can go past our 4 seamers. I think you've got to pick Southey, Bolt, Wagner, and Jamieson.
I think you do as well. So then you're coming down to the final one. Do you pick an all-rounder or a spinner?
I'm going for the spinner.
Okay, I was too until this morning. Mate. I definitely would have Ajaz in there. I definitely wouldn't have Santner anywhere near it.
Yeah.
Ajaz, he bowled bloody well in that last test. He picked up a couple of wickets each innings and did exactly what was asked of him. But I got a little message from a friend of mine who's been chatting to former New Zealand batsman Tim McIntosh, who's asked him the question, would you leave out the spinner? And he has said, I would leave out the spinner, definitely. It's covered at the moment, sweating under the covers with added moisture. Probably be a very fast bowling friendly pitch. So pick de Gronholm ahead of Ajaz in this instance, unless the pitch looks like a brown batter's pitch. And I find that very unlikely, the fact that it's been covered for the last couple of days. So I can't go by that, that sort of logic. Ajaz would be really unlucky. But what do you think about that call?
Picking Ajaz. And the wicket in Southampton has proven that it does spin towards the end of a game. And even though of the weather and the covers and all that you're only going to get that effect for the first 2 or 3 days. Then it will dry out. Then I think it will spin. Plus the fact that India has named their team and have picked 2 spinners. Ashwin and Jadeja have been picked for only the 5th time outside of Asia since the pair have been playing for India.
Wow.
So
they obviously think it's going to spin then.
Yeah. So
the thing is, both of those guys can bat too, can't they?
They are all rounders.
Yeah.
But if it's going to be as green as everybody's saying,
so if you pick the team that you're talking about, so you pick Jamieson at 7.
Yep, Jamieson at 7, Southey at 8.
There you go.
Wagner, Bolt.
Oh.
The thing is, our top 6 is in such good form.
You'd have to back them to get the runs.
Yeah.
The thing that I suppose the thing is with the wet wicket, if it is green, if it's seaming, it may not go to the 5th day. It may not. We may not get to that stage where it's spinning because there's wickets early on. So that's the thing. These are great arguments to have, though, aren't they? They're great arguments to have. The only thing, the debate we were having before the English test was obviously, do we pick Conway? Well, that's a bit of a bloody no-brainer now, isn't it?
Yeah.
He averages a couple of hundred in Test cricket, so you've definitely got to pick him. I wasn't sure about Nichols, but he's done the job, and I just think he's reliable, and he's just so sensible, isn't he? He's just such a sensible batter. The one guy I'm a little bit worried about is Ross Taylor.
Oh, he looked good in the second innings.
When he decided to play some shots. Yeah. Early on, though, I
think he'll be fine. Ross.
I hope so.
And the other thing is, if I'm picking an all-rounder to bat number 7, I'm not picking de Gronholm.
So you're going with
Daryl Mitchell, the man.
Daryl Mitchell. Fair enough. But I just think de Gronholm. Yeah, but de Gronholm just does a little bit more with the ball. I just think, especially in British conditions, I just think he's a little bit of. Mind you, if you got pick 4 seamers anyway, you're probably right. You're probably right. You probably pick the better batsman out of the all-rounder.
That's me talking. I know for a fact that Stead will choose de Gronholm.
Yeah, he will.
I don't know why.
Because of the haircut.
Must be.
How's the haircut? What did you make of the haircut?
It's a baseball haircut.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
And now I've just done a quick search on the old Samsung.
Yeah.
As decided in June 2018, if the ICC World Test Championship final between India and New Zealand ends in a draw,
yes,
yes, both teams will be crowned as joint winners.
What do we think of that? That's a bit naff, isn't it? Yeah, I don't like that. And how are we gonna share it between our place and India? Bags have it first.
We hold it for 2 years, and then they get it for 2 years.
Yeah, Bags have it for the first 2 years. I don't want it sent there the way that COVID's going over there.
Yeah.
We'll have it for the first 2. That's stupid. This is the first Test Championship thing, and they haven't even got a contingency for that.
Do you think the ICC have bowed to pressure from India, saying at least there's 2 results that we can get the trophy?
Yeah, definitely. Right. And but we can still say we're number 1 anyway. We're number 1 ranked. So yeah, that's bullshit. But anyway, let's hope it doesn't get to that. Let's hope it's resolved on the field, mate. Quite
right. Moving on to tennis, Novak Djokovic wins the French Open, his 19th Grand Slam title, just one short of Fed and Rafa. Will there ever be a more fair triumvirate in men's tennis ever again? these three have won 59 of the last 65 singles Grand Slam titles since they all started playing.
I can't think of anything like this. The only thing I can think of is in women's tennis when Steffi Graf and Monica Seles were dominating, and they basically had the and then we got Martina Hingis came in a little bit, but it was basically guaranteed, nailed on, they were going to win. These guys are a little bit like that, aren't they? If you don't back you could basically back those three in the field, couldn't you? I mean, and they'd be paying $1.50, and the field will be paying $3. So
years gone by, we've had lots of pairs of players. You think back to Borg and McEnroe, Sampras and Agassi.
There was like Lendl and whoever it was, but exactly, and Edberg and Villander. I mean, there were pairs of players that dominated, but nothing like this. These three are just absolutely phenomenal. They'll probably go down as 1, 2, 3 on the top 3 players of all time. I mean,
absolutely,
bloody close with the numbers they've got. And I've already had friends of mine say that Djokovic is he the GOAT already. I mean, 19 wins. He's won all 4 slams. And he's going to go on a lot longer than these two. Than the other two. The other two will be well retired by the time he retires. So I mean, he could end up with 30. Yeah.
I see Nadal's already pulled out of Wimbledon.
His body's falling apart, man. I mean,
it'd be interesting to see if Federer lasts during Wimbledon. I mean,
I'd love him to. I mean,
it is a softer surface, obviously, playing on grass and clay.
And grass suits his game. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him win another. For me, he's just the class act, though, isn't he? Just the way. I mean, look, you've got Nadal, who's just all grunt and power and just effort and all that sort of thing. And you've got Djokovic, who's just completely technically perfect and just. But then you've got Federer, and he's just grace, isn't he? He just moves so beautifully, around the court, and just seems to make everything look so effortless. And to me, he's the guy, the king, really, isn't he? To me,
yes. Oh, absolutely.
All right, so is that I think we've got it just about finished, just about tied it all up.
Something pop up.
Okay, what's happened? News flash. Hang on. Higher sports newscast. News flash.
And it's not good, I'm afraid.
Oh, no.
Auckland Tuatara have pulled out of competing in this year's Australian Baseball League.
Why?
Tuatara chairman Noel Davies said there was still too many uncertainties around the pandemic, with possible pauses of trans-Tasman travel bubble. It is an increasingly difficult decision to come to.
Oh, that's awful.
That could kill it.
Wow, on that bombshell.
Yeah.
Hey?
Good week, bad week. Well, I think we've
got our bad week now.
Got our bad week. That's very
that's horrible news.
Very disappointing. Good week. Who's had a good week? Golfer Lydia Ko has shot to the top of the LPGA's points table after a 9th equal finish in the latest tournament in the US. And another bad week after the Auckland Tuatara. Coca-Cola apparently lost $5.6 billion off their share price following Cristiano Ronaldo's removal of the sponsor's product off the desk in front of him. And I'm sure that share price will drop after we remove the bottle of Coke from our podcast this morning.
Drink water. Did he not realize that Coca-Cola are the biggest bottlers of water in the world? Yeah. Also, probably sponsored by Pepsi, right? Call me cynical. Probably sponsored by Pepsi. If not, he was sponsored by Coca-Cola at one stage when he was taking the money. So don't come across as all holier than thou, Ronaldo, doing it for the kids. Happy, I'm a big role model. Look at me. Sorry, Cristiano, you're not fooling us, mate. We've been around this planet too many times. We're cynical old men.
Quite right. And on that huge bombshell, we will tidy the show up, put it back online, get on YouTube, Spotify, like and subscribe.
And go the Black Caps tonight. Go the Black Caps.
Go the Black Caps.
Woo!